you've seen all those years, and I think this city is a phenomenal city to move to. You know, we have a lot of people who believe in us. It's a premier organization that we're trying to establish, and not just across the Charlotte area in North Carolina, South Carolina, Virginia, and all the fans around, but across the country, across the world. So I'm super excited in the direction that we're headed, and to be a part of it is definitely a blessing.
Could the Hornets make the playoffs for the first time in a decade? Here's a look at seeds 7 through 10 in the East. That's who would make the play-in tournament if the season ended today. Charlotte currently 9th, Miami right ahead at 8, so it's a big one. Hornets only 2.5 games out of the 6th seed, by the way, which the Sixers currently occupy. 6th or higher is in the playoffs, avoiding the play-in altogether. Meanwhile, it is March. College hoops, big headline. Massive blow for Carolina hoops ahead of tomorrow night's game at Duke. Star freshman Caleb Wilson now out for the season with a broken thumb on his shooting hand after a dunk in practice yesterday. Wilson was attempting to come back tomorrow after sitting out several weeks with a broken non-shooting hand. He'll now miss the ACC tournament here in Charlotte and March Madness. Charlotte FC hoping some home cooking will serve them better than their first 2 matches on the road. Charlotte hosting Austin tomorrow night after a draw at St. Louis, then a brutal shutout loss at LA, all away from the Bay.
After every game, when you put your head on the pillow, you start thinking about your own performance and how you played in that game, and there'll be a lot of them that know that they could have done better for long periods in the game and know what they have to improve on. But it's 2 games in the season, 2 games on the road as well. So we're at home. There's no excuses, and we need to go and perform.
All right, coming up tonight at 9 o'clock on WCNC Plus, our weekly WCNC Plus On the Pitch conversation. Tonight's guest, MLS on Apple TV analyst Devin Kerr. And at 11 o'clock, could we see a 7th straight Hornets victory here against the Heat? We'll have a recap at that point. We send it back to you.
All right, Nick, thank you. Don't forget Weather Impact at 6:30.
Yep, and we'll see you for Live Impact at 7 over on WCNC Plus streaming.
See you tonight at 11 as well.
Happy Friday, friends. Welcome back to Live Weather Impact here on WCNC Charlotte. Things look a little bit different today. We're in the studio instead of your normal, but we're still going to have a great show for you. A lot of weather talk here on the show today. If you went outside at all today, Friday, March 6th, you might have noticed that it was pretty toasty outside. That is not a surprise then that we got to a new record value here in the Charlotte area, 82 degrees, which actually broke the previous record of 80 set back in 2022. What is interesting to think about is that we had such a warm December, very warm start to January, and then after that we had the ice storm, the snowstorm. It was very, very cold. And if you haven't paid attention to a lot of the kind of end of meteorological winter post from Chief Meteorologist Brad Panovich, we essentially ended very close to normal because we essentially evened out with how cold it was with how warm it was. But so far in March, things have been very, very warm. 82 degrees here today, 80 again the previous record, but we have 2 more days where we could see record high temperatures over the next 7 days. Now, as most things, if you like the warmth, nothing good in that retrospect lasts forever. We will likely see a few more days into the 7-day forecast that are a little bit more normal for early March standards. But for perspective, 82 today. Our average high is 61 degrees. So it was 21 degrees above average, which I do think is pretty substantial. Weather impacts this weekend. We essentially have warmth and humidity. I would say this is both Saturday and Sunday, but it's more notable Saturday, I think, because temperatures will be close to 80 degrees once again. No records expected for Saturday, but again, we're still going to be very, very warm. Sunday, a few opportunities for isolated thunderstorms, similar to what we had today. And I just mentioned this, but there you can see it. More record heat on the way heading into next week. Now today we did have a few areas of showers and thunderstorms. Most of this has wrapped up now, but you have to think about the blowtorch that comes in when we talk about these winds from the south and southwest. Oftentimes it brings us more warmth and humidity from the south, from the Gulf. However, we also see more energy, which can fuel opportunities for thunderstorms. So I wouldn't say that they necessarily caught us off guard today because we had that chance of rain in the forecast, but I certainly wasn't expecting as many storms as we did have, at least producing lightning. I get this question all the time, especially when I go to school talks. But remember, when you think about, storms versus rain, the only difference between the two is that one has lightning and thunder and one does not. So actually saying rainstorm is redundant, which is why we normally say rain, right, if it's rain, and then storms if it storms. Snowstorm, of course, if there's snow, things of that nature. But I was surprised that we had so much lightning with some of those storms earlier today. Morganton, we saw some lightning along with those rain and storms that we had move in. Right along the I-40 corridor. That was right around 4 o'clock. We had some storms on the northern side of Lake Norman, just north of Cornelius and Huntersville. So it has been a relatively active day. And heading into this weekend, we won't see a really, really active weekend, but I think similar to today, they'll be very isolated, but the ones that do occur will likely produce not only a chance for thunderstorms, but also some gusty winds. So Saturday, we actually have a low wind chance of some of those gusty winds in excess of 40 or so miles an hour. It's mainly north and west of Charlotte, but what's interesting is that the Storm Prediction Center has essentially, for lack of a better term, cut our area in half, our local 22 counties, and it's the northwestern side that's impacted tomorrow, and it's the southeastern side that's impacted on Sunday. Now, in terms of the Charlotte Metro, this means a bigger impact on Sunday, but I still think both days have an opportunity for thunderstorms themselves. Again, they're still very isolated. Both days, it's 20 to 30% chance at a maximum, but I think you will notice a stark contrast between what we'll have on Saturday versus Sunday. So let's go through it slowly. Saturday will start off very dry, but by about 8, 9, 10 o'clock, we will see some areas of patchy, locally dense fog. Most of these clouds that you see are essentially those low clouds getting closer to the ground. And with that, we will have likely some areas of patchy drizzle. So this green that we're seeing being picked up on Futurecast is essentially drizzle being picked up, which is interesting because most of the time our in-house models actually don't do very well with drizzle potential because normally drizzle, I know we've talked about this so many times, is below the radar beam. So if it's here, right, the radar beam isn't picking it up. But tomorrow it actually is picking up on this very well, which also tells me that there's a higher chance, right, in some of these drizzle raindrops could be a bit bigger than normal. You've probably heard this before on the show, but repeat for the sake of, continuity. But Raindrops, yes, can be varying sizes, but drizzle is essentially like a quarter of that size. So when you refer to drizzle, it's essentially like referring to a teeny tiny raindrop, which is why, if you were driving, it's like enough to coat your windshield. When you're walking outside, it's like enough to pat your head, being like it's actually raining, without really seeing something falling from the sky, like right in front of your face. So after the areas of drizzle, the fog Saturday morning, we're mostly dry. Kickoff for Charlotte FC's first home match is at 7:30. I do not anticipate any weather-related issues for the beginning of the match. By the time the match is wrapping up, normally those are about 90 minutes to 2 hours. We could see a few areas of spotty storms, mainly north and west of us. Notice some of this action will be pushing in west of I-77 and up toward the mountains. It's very quick moving. If you're hanging out in uptown Charlotte after, again, the match, you could encounter some of that rain, but it is not a high risk by any stretch of the imagination. And I do think tomorrow it's more of a rain risk just because of the time of day. Sunday, starting off cloudy, more opportunities for showers and thunderstorms around 5 o'clock. This will actually be with the cold front trying to push through. So again, that lift, that instability will be a bit higher Sunday because it's the actual cold front itself. Moves in pretty quickly, moves out pretty quickly. The key here with the cold front that we're going to have move in is that it is not going to push all the way through, right? Think of your classic cold front during winter months. We get warm and humid ahead of it, it pushes through, and then that colder and drier air moves in behind it. It will be a bit drier behind it, but the cold air never comes because the front stalls instead of pushing all the way away from us. With that being said, pollen levels, warmth stays up the next few days. You'll notice some of these are higher probably than they were earlier this week, and that's because storms, because they're so isolated, oftentimes the wind itself kind of kicks things up more so. So it's not going to be your traditional, widespread rain, and it helps with the pollen. This actually could make things a little bit worse. And with the warmth, because again, the cold front never pushes all the way through, we're going to get stuck kind of in that warm sector Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. Monday is still very warm. We're still expected to be in the 80s, but it's Tuesday, Wednesday at this point that we're essentially guaranteeing that will likely break a record again, similar to what we did today. Quick reminder before we go, daylight saving time starts this weekend, which means a later sunrise and sunset. That also means we're springing forward. So you're actually losing an hour of sleep. Your phones do this automatically, but just remember, if the time, for example, is 1:59 and we're jumping forward right to 3 a.m. instead of 2 a.m. That means that if you have, for example, an alarm set, let's say you work nights at the hospital or I guess early mornings, let's say you have an alarm set for 2:30, your phone will skip that alarm. I have friends who work the morning shift actually in local news, and this has happened to them dozens of times. So again, if you have an alarm set essentially between 2 a.m. and 2:59 a.m., please make sure you're setting a backup because your phone likely will not go off. Again, quick look at the weekend forecast. Spotty showers on Sunday, very low wind chance there on Saturday. Temperatures still very warm Saturday at 80. Sunday, we're in the mid 70s because of all of that. I wouldn't say all of that rain, because of a higher rain chance and more clouds. I'm actually going to move the table. Sorry for the noise. So you can get a full look at that 7-day forecast. There's Saturday and Sunday. Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, as I mentioned, we're warm. Record highs likely on Tuesday and Wednesday. But notice that cool down is coming by the end of next week. We'll have another cold front push through. We'll bring that rain on Thursday. Cooler and drier air by next Friday the 13th.
Hello, hello. I'll be there in Tonight at 11, community criticism continues as Silfab Solar resumes operations at its Fort Mill facility. This after 2 chemical incidents this week. We'll have the company's response and why protesters say enough is enough. Good. Cool. All right. Was there like an echo? Like, I'm just sorry. I just noticed like I sound echoey. Is that? Oh, I don't know. Like, does it sound right? Like, my mic is on, right?
I don't think you sounded echoey.
Okay, Brittany says I sounded fine. It's probably us just hearing it weird. Thank you. Yeah. Okay, take all these things off here.